Wonderful Brainlyne podcast, and today we have our guest Douae. So Douae will be introducing herself, and she will tell us an interesting set of stories from her pre-high school here in Morocco and Casablanca to studying into one of the best boarding schools, and also how she went from there to a US university. Great. So Douae, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Douae Kherloukili, and I am a Moroccan 19-year-old student from Casablanca. For the past years, I've been studying at a boarding school in Israel and Palestine, where I got to learn more about conflict in the Middle East and sustainability. And today, I'm here to share my story and how I got into a university in the US after this experience.
Okay, so thank you, Douae. So that kind of gives us to the first question. Before you went to Israel and Palestine and studied there, where were you studying here in Morocco?
So I was studying in the Spanish school of Casablanca. I studied there since kindergarten. I did all my education there, but I wasn't really satisfied with the educational system and with the experiences that I was having. So I wanted to broaden my horizons and see something new. And that's how the idea came up.
Okay, so you said you didn't like your experience there. What were the things that you didn't like?
I wasn't really satisfied with the education that I was getting, especially because I was more interested in social sciences and I was receiving an education in sciences. It was all about memorizing. It wasn't very creative and I felt a bit bored in class. So I wanted something new.
Okay, so at that moment when you wanted something new, what was the first step to, moving towards that new thing, and how did that work?
So I did a bit of research on like IB schools and international schools abroad. I actually applied to WC twice and I was rejected 2 years in a row. And my last resort was a random boarding school in Israel. And this is really weird when I told my parents for the first time. It's a very random thing to tell your parents, I want to go study in Israel. And it was also my last resort, and I really wanted to continue my education abroad, and there was no way for me to finish my high school in that Spanish school.
Okay, so I know a lot of people might be asking what is the UWC, and I think it's a high school that focuses on peace building.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, and so let's go to the moment where you told your parents that you wanted to go to Israel. How was it exactly? Like, were you on a table, like, over dinner? How did that come? Like, how did you simply share it with your parents?
So the moment that I was applying to MS, there was a war between Gaza and Israel. So it was really tense, and from what I was getting information from the school, there were bombings in the city where the school was located, and students had to sleep in bunkers throughout their exams, and there were a lot of issues. So I didn't tell my parents that I was applying because there was just so much tension in the region that I was scared to tell them. But when I got in and I received my acceptance letter and my scholarship, that's when we were sitting in the lunch table. I just finished my classes and I told my parents, look, I got into this high school. It's really good. We're going to do the IB diploma and I received a scholarship. And at the end, they had to agree because, you sacrifice for your education. I think it's the most important thing. And
so you did the entire process hidden.
Secretly.
Basically, secretly, you
Top
didn't
secret.
say anything.
Exactly.
Interesting. So the school didn't ask you for like any documents or anything, or would you simply say to your parents, hey, it's for like general applications?
I had all the documents from UWC application process. So like every salary slip or anything that was like official and I needed to ask my parents for, I already had that on my laptop. So that was really easy for me.
Okay. And what was the reaction of your mom and your dad and your parents? I mean, brothers and sisters.
My mom was really opposed to the idea because of everything that we hear about that region in general. And obviously she was really worried. But she knew that like from a really young age, I wanted to finish my high school abroad. Like since I was 13, I told her I cannot finish in this school anymore. Like I need to get out of here. And she knew it was my biggest dream. So like it took a lot of convincing, obviously, but in the end it all worked out.
Yeah, but you preferred like bankers over an educational system that is not good. Okay. So what was her what was the reaction of your dad? Was he more of like a little bit chill? Usually dads are like chill.
My dad, like basically at home we grew up like instead of watching like Moroccan TV shows or anything, we used to watch Al Jazeera. Like since I was 5, I was like exposed to conflict in the Middle East, and he like taught me about it, and we used to talk about it from a really young age. So he was really excited that I would get the opportunity to see that with my own eyes, you know, like
Okay.
get to explore a side that I was really interested in. And I think he really encouraged me. He was really excited about it.
Nice. And so you mentioned that that you had the scholarship as well, right?
Yeah.
So what was the process like? What was it like? Did you have to fill in a form to do interviews? What was the process of applying to MIS?
So the process is really similar to the process of applying to a US university. Like you need to write essays, you need to write extracurriculars. We go through 2 different interviews. The first one is to get to know more about you as a person. It's also really similar, just like any US interview. It's a bit chill, very informal. They want to learn about you and what you're gonna bring to the table, why you want to come learn about conflict, etc. And we also had a second interview which was with the school counselor. So it was more like, are you gonna be able to live in these stressful situations and etc. So it was a bit more psychological.
Okay. So why did you want to go learn about the conflict? Sorry, I'm repeating your
Yeah.
application right now, but why did you want to go learn?
I just like, as I told you, I grew up watching like conflict on TV, and I've always known that I wanted to do something related to conflict in the Middle East. So for me, like career related and everything wise, like it was just the perfect opportunity, you know? Like you don't get the opportunity to live in Israel and learn about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict every day. So I saw the opportunity and I jumped into it.
Nice. And so you said also scholarships, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people watching would like to know numbers in general.
Yeah.
So was it like a full scholarship, a partial? What was the type of scholarships that you
So
received?
every year they give different scholarships, and it ranges from 20% to 80%. So I did receive an 80% scholarship, and that was like the highest for that year. And it literally covers everything except for insurance and flights. You have to take care of that on your own.
Yeah, and is insurance more expensive in the region, or
It's
'cause it's
less
like more dangerous?
expensive than the US.
Uh-huh.
It's way less expensive than the US, but it's still expensive compared to...
Nice. So now basically, how do you convince your parents? How do you convince your dad and everything?
So I had to convince my mom more, as you know, like Moroccan moms, they always want their children next to them and everything. And also I had really strict parents growing up. Like I wasn't really allowed to go out. So for a mother that doesn't let her daughter go to the mall with her friends, how will she allow her to go live in Israel alone? Like that's the big questions. And everyone was so shocked that my parents like agreed to this. But like, as I told you, they've always focused on my education. It was always their priority. And they always known that I had big goals in life. And I think that's like the way that I convinced them, is that this is like good for my future.
Okay, so you started your negotiation journey
Yeah.
from an early
Yeah.
age by convincing your parents.
Exactly.
Nice. And now let's go into the trip to Israel in general. How was your first trip there?
My first trip was really interesting. It all started in the airport.
Which airport?
So
Like Gaza, Rabat, which
I
one?
took the flight from Marrakesh,
From Marrakech. Okay.
and like I flew with the Israeli like airline El Al, and it was a really interesting experience because at that time, like I was in a flight where I was the only person holding a Moroccan passport. All of them were Moroccan Israelis or just Israelis coming to Morocco. So we had a different procedure to get into the plane, and you would be asked really invasive questions, in my opinion. I was told to like they checked my phone gallery, they looked at my photos, at my WhatsApp discussions. They asked me, what subjects are you gonna be taking, what extracurriculars will you be involved in, like really detailed questions. And it was a bit weird for me because I've never like had this experience before. But yeah.
But did you had like any like, because I'm pretty sure that you had a lot of readings that you did and everything. So did you have in your phone, for example, things that were a little bit controversial, like some political opinions or anything?
My Instagram profile picture was the flag of Palestine. During my,
okay, so it's a good start.
I was so glad they did not check my social media. Like that's the most controversial thing I had for them. And they also asked me like, where are you studying? And I made the huge mistake to say it's a school for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Like, and that I think is what like triggered them. and they started asking more questions, and they were, I don't know, like I think that's what triggered it. Like when you go through any like Israeli type of questioning, don't mention politics, don't mention conflict. Like just say I'm here to learn about the culture. Like just make it the least as less political as you can.
So did you? Because basically, once it's a short experience that I had, but
Yeah.
once I was traveling from Turkey to
Yeah.
Washington D.C. and since like anyone who travels to Turkey, they go and like they put you into those like underground places
Yeah.
where they can see you but you can't see them. So I had that not chance, but I
Yeah.
had that experience. So did they have to put you?
No, that
No.
was all in front of my parents. Like my parents were so worried. They were sitting in a cafe, and I was just being questioned by this tall Israeli man. And no, like everything was in front of them.
Oh, okay.
Fortunately.
So there was no like underground.
Yeah, thankfully.
Okay, that's good. Nice. And so when you arrived there, how was the reaction of your friends? Like, because I'm pretty sure that you have a pretty diverse group of friends here. Did some people stop talking to you? Did some people start talking to you? What was the reaction of your friends?
So in my Instagram, I used to always post stories about Palestine and advocating for, like the end of apartheid and things like that. So I did receive a lot of comments from people saying, "Oh, this is very like against your values. Like this is very hypocritical of you to go to Israel." And like I do understand the reactions, but like thankfully like there was no extreme reaction from any of my friends, and like they all understood my intention going there. Like they all understood it, and I was thankful for that.
So was it a hard experience or like not really?
Like in what sense? Like
in a sense where like you had to navigate justifying yourself that you were going for education, not for something else.
Yeah, every time someone would ask me like, where do you study? Or I can't really say Israel. Like I can't just like say it out loud. Like if I say it out loud, I need to justify it in a sense. Like guys, don't worry, I'm just going there for my education. Like people on social media always think that I'm going there and I'm like supporting the actions of the government, that I'm supporting Netanyahu, whatever. But like I truly like don't support any of that. It's just like any person going to France doesn't necessarily support the Islamophobia there. Any person going to the US doesn't support the like invasion in Iraq, It's any person that goes to China doesn't support what's happening to the Uyghurs. Like it's not that I'm going there to make a political statement, hey, I'm supporting Israel. Like it's for my education as like everyone else does, I guess.
Yeah. So when someone asks you where do you study, what's the typical question?
I study next to Jerusalem.
Next to Jerusalem?
Like that's the...
Okay. But do you say like usually I study in emidst or I study like what's
Yeah, but then people will tell you what is emidst and where is emidst.
Okay, so it's going there either way.
Yeah, like it's either Israel or occupied Palestinian territories or in the Middle East, like depending.
Okay, depending on who you are talking to.
Yeah.
Nice. And so how was the experience there, like actually where where you were there, did you meet a lot of like international students or like local students? How's the experience? Which language do you speak usually?
We all spoke in English, and English was the main language on campus. And I think it was really eye-opening in the beginning, especially everyone was so involved in politics. We used to like sit in dinner with 10 nationalities talking about how we see different like conflicts or different political things from like our national perspective, talking about the Western Sahara, talking about Israel and Palestine. Like every single conflict you can imagine was brought up in our dinners and lunches and whatever. And I got to really get to know different perspectives. I know it sounds really cliche, but I wasn't like expecting myself to be so open at the end of this experience. But I think it really made me a completely different person in that sense.
Because I think you started kind of understanding that if you really want to make a change or advocate for something, you need to first listen. Convince.
I personally want to be a diplomat in the future. As a diplomat, you need to be negotiating with people that you don't agree with. Like you can sit with, I don't know, Bashar al-Assad or Netanyahu and like come to an agreement at the end of the meeting, right? So I feel like this opportunity gave me the experience to bond with people who don't necessarily share the same ideology or political opinions as me, while like not letting that affecting our relation. And also, like, we had really interesting experiences. We had something called the peace simulation, where we have a group of students representing the Israeli delegation and a group of students representing the Palestinian delegations, you would literally have Palestinians from the West Bank representing Israel and right-wing Israelis representing Palestine and defending, like that perspective. So I think that was really interesting, like getting to know.
So that's actually interesting that you have a lot of peace happening inside,
Well,
right? But inside the school.
That's relative. Also, inside of the school is pretty relative, but sure, like inside of the school, the relations between Israelis and Palestinians were
Tense.
really no, actually,
Close?
like I feel like the closest people on campus were the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Interesting. So was it more of like a selection process by the school, or like how did that happen? Because you take literally two people, like two group of people who might not necessarily be the best friends, and you put them together and force them to study together.
Yeah, like they
what's
were
the secret sauce for that?
Closest to each other. Like Israelis and Palestinians were besties, literally.
Why?
And I think because to me, I feel like culturally speaking, like let's take politics away, they do have a lot in common. Like Arabs and Israelis are really similar. Like whether it's like personality or culture, music, everything is really similar. So I think that really helps like people bond over the similarities more than the political differences.
Oh, okay. And so that's nice that you have a lot of peace, but out in the outside world you have a lot of war, I think. Did you have any experience with war, with bombing, with anything like that? Were you ever scared at some point?
I was never scared because, like, honestly, I always see it from the side that, like, I'm here, I'm safe, we have an iron dome, we have bunkers, we have sirens. Like, I always saw it as, like, I always thought about, like, what if I was in Gaza? I know I wouldn't be safe, right? Like, no bunkers, no sirens, no anything. So I always put myself in that, like, I am in Israel. Israel, like, really has all those mechanisms to defend itself. And, like, I was never afraid of anything. But it also, like, taught me, like, we call it conflict, but at the end of the day, is it really a conflict when like both sides are so like unequal? I don't know.
So there's really no kind of discussion between one powerful side and a side. Like no conflict. Yeah.
Like honestly, like sure you will. Like I would feel scared. Like for example, you have 90 seconds to when you hear the siren. You have like 90 seconds to go to a bunker, and like imagine you're sleeping, imagine you're in the shower. Like those are the worries that I had. Like, will I have enough time to go to a bunker if I heard a siren? Would I hear a siren while I'm sleeping? Like those are the type of worries that I had, but it wasn't really huge.
So a lot of people would be asking in general, what is a bunker? Like, what does a bunker look like?
Yeah,
share with us the experience of a bunker and going there and what.
Before going to Israel, I thought a bunker was a room like underground, like really scary and dark. Our bunker was the class where we took our final exams. Like in Israel, basically every house has one room with metallic windows and a metallic door. And that's the bunker. It's just like any random room in the house. And in the case of our school, we had one class. And we also had one small common area with couches and a piano, etc. So it's just like a normal room with the windows and door.
Oh, okay. So basically, it changed the architectural structure of Israel, where in every building you need to have a bunker.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you hear the alarm, then everyone runs into the.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, in 90 seconds you have all the school in one place.
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. And did you ever had to? So when did you have to go to a bunker? Like when there is bombing? Like
so
why?
Whenever you hear a siren, but also the thing is that when we had like bombings last May, I was actually taking my final exam for like for university admissions, and like it was a listening exam for language, and you have to pay attention to those little details. And I heard a bang in the sky. And like Gaza actually like announced that we will be sending missiles to Tel Aviv, so guys get ready. And we didn't hear a siren, but the siren was heard like 2 kilometers away from our village.
So is the siren in like everywhere or in like in the building? How does the siren work?
Israel has really small towns. Like for example, like Casablanca would be the size of I don't know half of Israel, and like they have really small towns, and every town has their own like alarm systems, and sometimes throughout the year they do try those sirens, so you'd be sitting and suddenly you hear a siren, and those are like the trials to make sure that everything is working perfectly. And I know we had like in the town and in the village where we lived, we had sirens. So when they go off, you have to immediately go to the bunker.
Oh, okay. So you had to go to a bunker and.
So in our case, we didn't hear the sirens, but like the sirens were heard, like as I told you, 1 or 2 kilometers away from us. So just like for safety like reasons, we went to the bunker, but we did hear the bombings.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so basically, can you go to a bunker whenever you want, or
Yeah,
unless
like
you're here? Because
like
if you're in
we
an exam and the exam is getting hard,
yeah.
and you need a small, I mean, it's not like I don't mean to say it that way, but basically, if you need just to go to bunker anytime, like, do you have that freedom or?
Yeah, like the bunker, like the class was an open space. The common
Oh,
space
okay.
was also like we used to hang out there, literally. Like it was like in a random house, like let's say not an educational building, like it would be, for example, a bedroom, and that
Oh,
bedroom
okay.
is the bunker, and yeah, it's just like any normal room.
Oh, so it integrates naturally with
Yeah,
with the
exactly. Like you
lifestyle.
don't even notice until you look at the windows and like the metallic door, and like okay, this is a bunker.
This is the bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And so, life on campus, did you have like activities? What did you have? What were you doing?
So we lived in a village, which was an agricultural village. We had families there, and we were really like the school was trying to make us involved with the community. So we had communal Shabbats, and every religious celebration was celebrated there. We also had Mimuna, which is a Moroccan Jewish celebration. And we were really involved, whether it's like serving in the dining halls or washing the dishes, milking cows, working with chickens and animals, feeding deers, etc. This is like related to the like village life. And related to the school, we had every type of extracurriculars, but I think it was more focused on anything that is like sustainability, like farming and blah blah blah, and politics. It was very political, like the extracurriculars that we had, like to learn more about the conflict. Like our trips, they would take us around the region. Like I visited like the Syrian, the Lebanese, the Jordanian borders. We went to the Gaza border. Like they made it very interesting in the sense that you can learn a lot about the conflict and all the like political, socioeconomic, and environmental components of the conflict as well.
So that's very interesting. And did you ever travel to places where there were conflicts or not?
Yeah,
Really?
like we went to like the Golan Heights and the like occupied Syrian Golan Heights. We went to a place like there was an observatory, and they were telling us that those are the houses of Hezbollah. We went through like the like a village that was literally like at the border of Gaza. We looked at the borders, etc. Like they always try to take us to these places.
And any special like circumstances where you go, like do they overprotect you a little bit, or how does it? Do you
So
wear
the
like
thing,
shelters?
like the Ministry of Education in Israel has a lot of requirements. So in some areas we need to go in a bulletproof bus. We always have a military with us and a paramedics just in case. And also there's a lot of restrictions. Like my last trip, we were supposed to go to Sheikh Jarrah, and the ministry didn't allow it. Like especially with the change of government, the recent one, we had a lot of restrictions in the school. Like sometimes, like we wouldn't be allowed to, like people wouldn't be allowed to wear keffiyehs, or we wouldn't be allowed to like have the Palestinian flag, or visit certain places, or have certain speakers because of the new government.
And so with all of this happening, were you able to focus on education? Were you
Yes.
able to study and actually like?
So I think the first year was like I was really involved, especially the first semester. I was really trying to learn, but by the second year, like all that curiosity is already like, okay, I've already learned enough. I'm doing the IB and I'm applying to colleges. Like I need to shift my focus. So in my case, I thought MS was really short because I only really enjoyed it the first year. And the second year, I was so far behind in everything related to college applications. and like studies and exams that I only focused on that, and like I kind of ignored all the, you know, like learning interesting aspect that I came for.
That's nice. And so then you started shifting to universities, right? Applying to
Exactly.
universities.
Then like my focus totally.
Yeah. So did you apply to Moroccan schools, to American schools? Where did you apply to?
So I tried to like apply to as many schools as possible because I just had this fear that what if I don't get in anywhere. And I applied to schools in the US, I applied to two schools in the Netherlands, I applied to Sciences Po, and I applied to Georgetown, Qatar. And like those are the schools that I did.
Nice. So how was the acceptances or rejections in all of them?
So in the non-US universities, I think it was fine. The issue was with the scholarships. Like scholarships are very scarce in Europe, and like you have to go through a really long process, which is really weird to me. Relating to the US, it was
Tough.
shocking. It was tough. It was hard, but I wasn't expecting like it to be easier, to be honest, because I heard a lot of horror stories from people who were rejected everywhere and things like that. So I was prepared for it. And I received one acceptance that I was really happy with. So I was like satisfied. Like, okay, I didn't get into an Ivy League, but I got a school that I like, which is fine for me.
Nice. So which school is that?
That's Middlebury College.
Great. So what is Middlebury? I know that it's a pretty good, ranked school in general. So can you explain a little bit what is Middlebury and...
So it's a liberal arts college at the border with Canada. And yeah, it's like a school, rural area, and interesting liberal arts college.
Nice. So in your application, did you mention a lot of things about what you learned in your 2 years of boarding school? What made you get accepted into that school?
I don't know. I think it's a school that's really focused on languages, and I think that aspect is what really made me stood out. Like, as any Moroccan, like, we do have a lot of languages. I think we need to like highlight that in our application. I think it's our strongest characteristic. And I really focused on the languages aspect, and also on like the political learning that I had at MS. Like, those were the major components of my application.
Nice. So which languages do you speak?
I speak, Derija, French, Spanish, English fluently. And I learned a bit of German, and I also took Russian in school.
Oh, wow. So they should definitely be impressed in general.
Yeah.
So how was the application for for Middlebury? Did you need scholarship? Did you require scholarship, or did you apply it for like without a scholarship? How was the final?
So I applied for scholarship to the CSS profile, which was to me a huge struggle because I had no one to help me with that. And like there was many words I couldn't understand. Like I think it was the hardest part of it was the CSS profile, to be honest.
It's like very confusing, specifically if you don't have like a system in place in general. Okay. And so how was the scholarship in general? Did you receive like a full scholarship, like a partial? How was their
So just
package?
like MS, it was an 80% scholarship, which is like not ideal, but I was happy because at least I got in somewhere. And yeah, that was it.
Nice. But 80% of like a school that probably cost 80,000, that should be something like $60,000 a year, or
exactly.
64. Nice, that's great. And so what will you be studying in Middlebury?
So I have a bunch of requirements because it's a liberal arts college, so I need to take classes in every area, but I want to major in international relations and Russian. And probably Arabic as well.
Probably Arabic?
Probably Arabic as well.
Nice, because I know that Middlebury, they have a really famous language school.
Yeah.
People from all over the US come to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so are you planning to do that to become like a diplomat, or what do you want to...
Well, I think with all the experiences I've had so far, I feel like the ideal thing for me would be to become a diplomat, like having the languages and having the things that I learned at MS. I feel like the ideal thing would be diplomacy.
Nice. So one of your targets might be potentially like working at the UN, or is that something that's
my dream is working at the UN.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Exactly.
That's great. Did you get to tour the UN or not yet?
I've never been there.
Oh, okay. But actually, they let anyone tour there.
Really?
Yeah. It's even though a lot of people think that it's really, really well guarded, but actually it's more of like also a touristic place where you can go and simply...
Yeah, sure. That's my dream.
Yeah. Well, nice. Well, we have a future diplomat with here today. Great. And so what would you advise the upcoming students in Morocco?
I
What would
think
your advice
like
be?
don't be discouraged, because in my like entourage I had people who were perfect students. They had counselors who have like a lot of experience getting people into Ivy Leagues. People weren't asking for scholarships. They had perfect SAT scores, and I literally had nothing of that. I wasn't like the ideal student in IB. I I had the really low SAT score that I didn't end up sending. I required a lot of financial aid, and I was really insecure, and I really thought I wouldn't get in anywhere. And in the end, it worked out really well for me compared to other people who had better stats, or like you would think they would have 100 times more chances than you of getting in. But in the end, I think just like show passion in what you do, have a really cohesive application, and be personal in what you're writing, and have like original extracurriculars that demonstrate a unique interest. I think that's my biggest advice for anyone who is going through this process.
Yeah, and I also think actually that because in applications, when an application is over polished, it's really, really nice. They know that there were a lot of backing behind that, and they are looking sometimes more for students who might not necessarily have that much of a backing, but they have some sort of guidance, but not much of
like my Common App essay, nobody read that.
Okay, so that's the question. Is it because you didn't have someone to read it, or because it was personal?
It was personal, but also, okay, I have to admit, it was very last minute.
Oh, okay, that's nice. So you didn't have time to send it for review.
Like my friends started writing in April, and by like summer they had everything finished.
Yeah.
I wrote mine because I always like procrastinate because I have so many ideas that I can't pick one. So I wrote mine like literally the day before sending my applications.
Okay, I think we should cut this one, so that's not it. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but that's like, I really advised against this. It was really stressful for me, and I also had like a bunch of grammar mistakes that I could have easily avoided. So always have someone check it before. It doesn't need to be an English teacher, it just can be someone from your family. Like always have someone give you feedback. Because I went into some political topics that I could have avoided, I think could have been better. Just always have someone read it, whoever it is.
So what was the topic of your Common App essay?
I wrote about like the process of becoming more open-minded, like through the through the MS experience, and like how my perspective shifted in certain, like related to certain things.
Okay, that's nice. And for your supplements, did you have supplements or? So
I had supplements for other unis, but like Middlebury doesn't have any supplemental essays, so the only thing they read was my Common App.
Oh, and they don't have SAT scores as well.
Yeah, it's optional.
Nice. So everything that go to is that last essay into like just that last minute essay. Nice. And so, what are your plans in the future? Would you like to come back work in Morocco, or like just work in the UN? What's your...
So I think like I'd like to start something a bit more international and like travel around the world a bit, but I still want to, at the same time be doing something for Morocco, and that's why I'm really interested in working for the Ministry of like Foreign Affairs, like still like being an ambassador for Morocco around the world, representing your country and also trying to make a small impact. But like for when I'm older, like 30, 40, I'd love to come and do politics in Morocco, like actually help like my community, and that's...
Nice. Well, we have actually a Brainlyne leadership club in general that we take some students to the parliament and we take them to ministries. So that would be a nice way also for you to get involved into that. Great. And so what was the reaction of your parents once you got into Middlebury?
They were super excited. I think they were happier than me because I was like telling them throughout the whole application process, look, like even my counselor, when I told her, look, I'm applying to this school, she was like, this is literally a lottery. Like we have many perfect students who don't get into their safeties. So she told me, this is a lottery. You have like 1% chance of getting in. Like look at it this way so you won't be disappointed. And that's the way that I also spoke to my parents, like, look, I'm just trying this. Like if it works, it's perfect, but if it doesn't, there's also other alternatives. So when I got in, they were really happy that like the worst case scenario didn't happen.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah. Great. And so what would be one last advice that you would give to students?
I think this is so cliche, but I'm gonna say it.
Mm-hmm.
Be yourself and don't compare yourself to others. I think the most detrimental thing you can do to your mental health through this process is comparing yourself to someone who either has better grades or has more help or more financial capabilities. Don't do this. Just focus on your passion and focus on what you want to, like, the impact you want to be making in the world. Like, also, like, I read about this a lot. Universities are like a business. Like, you need to bring something to the table in the future. They want you to be donating. So you need also to show certain capacities from successful people. You need to show them that I can be a successful person in the future. This is how I can be a successful person. So I think that's like my personal advice.
Nice. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for
That was a
having me.
wonderful podcast. Yeah, so thank you so much for this wonderful podcast. And if you have any follow-up questions with Douae, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to connect with you.